afternoon. Welcome back to the Zig Zone, first show of 26 for Falcon Media Sports Network's flagship sports talk show, where we take you through everything going on in the world of Bowling Green athletics. I'm your host, Holden Ruck, back here for another semester of the show, and joined by three of our beats and big contributors from the Falcon Media Sports Network. We'll start off over here all the way to my left, Tyler Kavlis, our production director and one of our men's basketball beats. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to talk about this men's basketball team that, has hit kind of a rut through the toughest part of their conference schedule. Get a little break, but excited to talk about what's gone on since we left for winter break.
Next up, Lucas Kleinmeyer, our sports content director and one of our women's basketball beats. Lucas, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Holiday Holden. I appreciate all your work over winter break. We came up with that new nickname for you. I'm doing
doing
good.
nicknames now for everyone?
Yes.
And just so you know, I did see you turn off Tyler's mic a minute
I did.
ago.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for the justice.
I haven't seen this man in so long. I just had to do it.
No freebies this semester.
Yes. No, I'm doing good. I don't think I've been on here to talk women's basketball since the season started, maybe. Because
we're all very thankful for that.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited.
Last but certainly not least, a staple in the chair over here. But he's next to me now, and that's nice. Ben Korak, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a new year. More athletics going on. Love it.
New year, same Ben. All right.
Same thing.
Great intro.
Well, there's been a lot going on since the end of the semester. 3 primary sports in action with men's basketball, women's basketball, and hockey. And so we are going to go pretty much in that order. The Falcons have played 7 games since the semester ended. Tyler, just to start off, just give me kind of your broad takeaway of this stretch of this season. Where are we at? Where's our comfort level with this team?
Comfort level is an interesting one. I think it's got to be just an okay feeling. Like, they've shown potential, but there's been games against the top teams in the conference where you go like, yeah, they seem to be in that second tier, where they're a good team in the conference, but are they a great team? And I don't think we have that answer yet. So I do think I'm pretty confident this will be a tournament team. I don't think they're in danger of missing the tournament right now. But in terms of being able to compete for a championship, I think there's still a question out there of whether they are that caliber of a team.
Yeah, and, you can look at since the break started, I don't really take a lot away from the Chicago State game. Nice to get a win. Siena Heights, nice to get a win. I think that, I'm not quite sold on them as a team that can win a tournament game. I do think they're going to make it, but I think they're at an interesting point because they keep, they're competing with these good teams. UMass, by all rights, not off to a good start in MAC play, but seems to be, a pretty decent team through their non-conference. A close nail biter there that we'll get a little more into because that was a wild one. But then you've got the 3 MAC losses against the team that kind of came out of nowhere, I would say, especially with the loss of a point guard. Miami, currently undefeated on the season. Really my surprise for the MAC of the year. Didn't see that coming. And then Kent State and Akron, who are, pretty routinely, perennially good teams in this Mid-American Conference. And it's not so much like I think it's fine to lose those games to top teams because, those teams usually win games for a reason, obviously. But just the way that it's happened in a couple of those, to have them so close and not be able to close in key moments is what
I think you also have to consider they've started conference play. Their first 5 games are against the top 5 teams in the preseason pool.
This is true.
They got the worst draw out of any team in the conference to begin conference play. It's one of the worst draws in the country relative to the conference. So, of course, it's not going to be as tough as like a Big Ten team, but if you look at Big Ten teams facing other Big Ten teams, it's not as tough as what BG's been dealt in their conference play. And that recent 3-game stretch where you have the 1-point win over UMass, the 3-point loss to Kent State, and then what ended up being a 10-point loss to Akron, they played those 3 games in a span of 9 days. And that was traveling to UMass, one of the tougher trips in the MAC, traveling back to BG, then going 2 hours east to Kent State, and then being home against Akron, who, is the reigning champ in the regular season and tournament, and just an all-around fantastic program led by John Gross. So that is a really tough just 3-game span, and you're taking away in that part the Miami game and the Ohio game, which are 2 tough contests as well.
I do think you put it right initially, though, that I do think there's kind of a line of contenders drawn, at least right now.
Like
and
right
especially
now,
because you're not in it because you
Yeah.
haven't beat one of those teams.
right
Like, if you
now,
were
I
able-
would looking at it, you'd probably go
Yeah.
Miami, Ohio, Akron, Kent
Probably.
are my top 4. I'm not sold on Buffalo yet.
Maybe Toledo.
Toledo, I think, is in the same boat as BG until they can prove
Yes.
otherwise.
But it would have been such a nice
Yeah.
get to be able to take that win over Kent State, or at least play tighter with Akron. Who's Akron and Miami probably the 2 favorites if you had to narrow it down to 2.
Yeah.
It just would have been nice to do. So I do think you put it right initially that I'd feel relatively comfortable with where they're at. And being
I
a
think
tournament
it'd be a
team.
lot worse if they didn't get the win over Ohio.
I agree. Do I think that they're in one of those bubble teams? Not yet.
No.
At least.
And I think too, I mean, even just like looking at the standings, obviously there's different non-conference schedules. Some teams have much stronger ones, some teams have much weaker ones. There's not a winning team in overall record below Bowling Green currently in the MAC standings. I mean, they've shown that they can, kind of throw those punches and hang with, Akron and Kent in, fairly close games. I mean, even Miami making it look a little closer by the end of it. So yeah, I don't think. I don't think for most people watching this team there should be questions of if they're going to get there. But taking it to that next level, being an actual contender for the title, I think is where more the conversation centers.
And unfortunately, the team was pretty much fully healthy up until the recent stretch, where you have Justin Thomas in a boot at the UMass game, unable to go, plays 25-ish minutes against Kent State, but doesn't really do much, doesn't look comfortable out there. Only plays 2 minutes against Akron, and then Javon Ruffin comes down with a sickness. He doesn't play against Kent State. He plays 20-something minutes against Akron, but looks extremely uncomfortable. So that doesn't help in those 2 games when you have one of them was a starter, but really 2 of your 3 rotational guards with Myar Wool, either your first 2 off the bench or one of your starters in Justin Thomas's case. So it's just an overall, I think, bad hand that got dealt to them. They almost made it out of there with 1 of 2 wins, but a loss is a loss. It doesn't change whether it's a 3-point loss, a 10-point loss, or a 20-point loss. But I do think, and we'll get into it, I think the break right now, having a week off, could help the team, but they're going to need to come out of their firing because they can't really, right now, be able to lose much more being 2-3 in conference play already. You don't want to fall down those standings. You want to stay in contention.
Yeah, I mean, you're already getting to a tipping point where, I think I feel pretty comfortable saying that Bowling Green is better than any of the teams below them currently in the standings, but that doesn't necessarily matter. The better team sometimes doesn't get away with one. So, I mean, yeah, fortunately, I think that, sorry, Ben, I think it's fortunate that they've kind of gotten most of those tougher games out of the way. You get to, feed on a couple of less difficult teams, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan. Toledo is always going to be a tricky one.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, 3 of those teams that are around you kind of outside of that line that we drew of definite contenders are Toledo, Eastern, and Western, who you're playing upcoming. So that puts an even bigger asterisk on those games, or a bigger mark on the schedule at least, to say if you win 2 out of 3, you're kind of separating yourself from those mid-tier teams. And maybe you're not in contention with one of the contenders, but you did play pretty close with most of them. So,
well, I mean,
you could just help
be,
yourself a lot these next 3 games.
It's going to be tough to get on the same level as Miami or Akron this year. Really, Miami. I had doubts about them. I thought they faced a very weak non-conference schedule, which they did. But they've backed it up so far in conference play that they are the real deal. So,
but you do see Kent State, Miami, and UMass again.
Yeah,
and you do have a chance to not only play tight but also take a win.
Yeah,
which would be huge.
If you look at I know we're talking about this like tough 3-game stretch. They started really bad against Miami and Akron, where they were down by 20 plus.
Akron, they went down 20 in the first 9-10 minutes. Miami, they were down. They were basically doubled up for nearly the full first half.
Yeah. They were down 26 at the half against Miami.
Yeah.
In fairness, that Miami game was not as close as the score.
Yeah, but my point is they battled back in a way, especially in Akron, which I think is a good sign for Simon and good sign for the team. I think Kent State would be probably most disappointing because I watched the full game. It was a close game back and forth, and it just came down to a final shot. and he didn't make it force overtime. But that's also basketball. That's also going to be the games you're going to get into the MAC
Well,
tournament.
I
Those
think
games.
Kent, you got a little more in there because you had a decision made.
True.
They had 2 timeouts with 10 seconds to play in transition. Simon explained after the game that they liked how they were scoring in transition. They liked the matchups in transition. Held timeouts. The matchups ended up getting jumbled. Still got 2 good looks with Myra Wool, who is able to elevate over the defenders he was faced and just missed both those looks. He was willing to die with those looks, and he did. But, if I was in that position, I'm taking a timeout and resetting. Just chose not to. But the reason this team is able to make these games that are blowouts in the first half close in the second half is their defense. They go from a man defense to their zone, their 1-3-1 zone primarily, which works very well in terms of kind of preserving you for a span of 5 to 10 minutes and being able to keep you afloat until defenses figure out that zone. And they also utilize the press really well with their length. The problem is you can't really come out in the first half with that press. So they only use it in the second half pretty much exclusively, and that's what tightens these games up. It's just their shooting in the first half has been so poor over the past month, which is very reminiscent of last year, that these games are not close by halftime against these top teams.
And so, if you're coaching the locker room, Tyler, I mean, how are you looking to shore that up? I mean, obviously you've got the guys, that's not changing. This team has to figure out a way to be more efficient, to not, dig such a hole. I mean, I was at the Miami game, first time in quite a while I've gone to a game as just a spectator and not like working it in some way. And it was a good time, but also like it felt like, okay, they're really, really in this late. They were never, again, it was ended as a 10-point game and it wasn't really ever closer than that. But I mean, it felt the momentum was all in Bowling Green's side. They outscored Miami in that second half. I mean, they really felt like there were some things going their way, but the hole was just so deep from the first half. I mean, how can they avoid that?
I don't know. I haven't been able to get a pulse on it yet, and watching it feels a little bit different each game. Like Akron was just a blitzkrieg. Akron came out and was way more energetic. BG looked a little lethargic. I think Akron's game plan and maybe some scripted plays at the start of the game that Gross wanted to run worked perfectly. Their transition was killing BG, and they just looked faster. Miami, I think, was just overall shooting. BG couldn't contain it for whatever reason. So it's a little bit different each game, but I think the main thing has been the offense isn't there right away. So no matter how good your defense is going to play, BG's not able to stay in these games if the offense can't keep you up.
And to be honest,
I think that might be more of something, if I'm in the locker room, play free. I think at times they're playing a little tight. They're pushing a little bit in the start of games, really forcing themselves to try to score instead of just playing free like they do in the second half when they're getting some success on defense to help them out.
And to be honest, like it feels like they're doing themselves no favors. That Miami game, again, you go into the second half down 26, down 22 at the under 12 media break in the game against Akron. And, if you're scoring big, you've got guys like Javante Campbell scoring 47 like he did against UMass. Meyer Wall scoring 32 against Akron. You've got guys that can score, but when you're always playing from behind like that, I mean, this is not a way to succeed and win. And to your point, they do like to press, but I mean, I would need a third hand to count the number of times I watched them press in the second half of that Miami game, and then they just like chuck it over them, and then you've got a number advantage on the Bowling Green defensive
That's
end.
the risk of going the press. It only works so much of the time. You
But
give up
like
points doing that.
But it feels like they have almost no option when they're down that far, but to try to force those mistakes, and like that's not sustainable enough. You know what I mean? So
and you have to consider they've put that press on tape all season long now. These teams have numerous games to go back to, dating back to really, I want to say they started using it even against Bethany in that game. They used it a ton. They used it against Davidson down the stretch. Now in multiple conference games. So teams are starting to get more aware and comfortable with playing against this press of Bowling Green rather than being surprised by it. So I do think the effectiveness is going down a little bit as we continue through the year.
Yeah, and you're playing against teams that are very well coached as well. Like you don't think John Gross's team doesn't know how to break a press.
Travis Steele.
Like they know what they're doing. They know what BG's going to bring. They know how to break it. And it's more to what Holden was saying, that you can't find yourself down to that point where you have to press. You should just be able to bring it out when you want to make a change and switch it up. It's just all an overarching theme of just bringing more consistency. I mean, there's inconsistencies in who is scoring well each night, who's shooting well each night, who's getting shots. I don't think for how well Sam Towns is scoring certain games, and then he'll just like not get any shots the next game.
Sometimes
Mayor Wool,
a lot of this revolves around which players can stay out of foul trouble.
Oh, there's true.
Sam Towns' biggest weakness is he falls into foul trouble quite often, and
very quickly too. It's a pretty steep slope.
It happened. I want to say Shackelford was the latest one against Akron to pick up some quickly. And when you have guys get fouls like that, a lot of times these coaches are going to bring them off the floor for the rest of that half because it's 5 instead of 6, like the NBA. You can very quickly get to that mark if that team just wants to attack you. And especially if you bring Sam Towns off the floor, it limits what BG can do, what they want to do with their size down low. They have to go to a smaller lineup naturally.
Their depth in that aspect of the game is not strong enough to like be okay taking Sam Towns off the floor. He scores too well.
Yeah,
he scores too well, and Troy Glover as well is a very good defender. But if you take him out, the whole complexion of the game changes, especially on the interior.
Yeah, and Glover's a guy that's not going to give you 30 minutes anyways. He usually only gives you 20, 25 minutes at best.
And that actually speaks to another point about this team. You've got already erratic scoring, as we're talking about. A team clearly showing, they can put a ton of points on the board in the second half, but, I mean, they're not, showing up as much in the first half. You also can't rely on, Javante Campbell to score 47 again. I mean, that was a crazy, incredible stand-up performance in that overtime win against UMass. But, I mean, it's not sustainable. I mean, he played every minute of that game. Full 45.
He has played every minute of the past 3 games. He's played, it is 125 consecutive minutes.
Well, think about that, too. If he didn't have a historic performance, which is the most points in 2 decades from
the most points since 1964.
Points? Yeah. I mean,
it's the most road points in a game in Falcons history, the 5th most points in a single game, and the most points by a BG player since 1964.
Yeah. Like, if he didn't do that, they would have went 0 for 4 in this max stretch and would have been, a 2-3. We went 1-4. Like, that's not good if that would happen. So,
against the UMass team that doesn't have a conference win yet.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, you could probably just chalk it up as maybe they're not in the best of form as of now, despite playing really, really tough teams and, like, the top teams in the conference. But I personally think they'll be fine with this kind of no game midweek. You have Eastern Michigan at home this Saturday. You get a win there. You get some momentum going. And then you can get on a run here for a bit. It's going to be a while before they have kind of a run like they did. I think I looked at the schedule sometime in February. They do have the Miami, the Kents of the world, the Akrons again in a row. And I do think, again, if you can get 2 of the 3 is big, but even if you just get one of those wins, you're going to change the momentum and confidence of your team. I think that's a big thing that Todd Simon and just this group needs is you just get that kind of marquee win over a top contending team in the conference. They haven't been Akron and Kent in a long, long time. It's been way too long since they've gotten a win.
13 straight losses against Kent and 8 straight losses against Akron.
That is, I feel like, all we really need to see to feel like they can contend.
Because
if
you get one, cool. Who says you can't get another one in the tournament?
Exactly.
Like if you do it already, you're gonna have that team's gonna have confidence and proof that you can do it before. Now Miami is a fairy tale, whatever you want. Like we'll see when they lose. Eventually, if it's BG, great. When they go to Oxford, like in mid-February, if they lose,
they'll even out. But they'll even it out.
Akron only lost 1 game last year in the conference schedule.
Yeah, I mean, so I do think they'll be fine as long as they do stay healthy. To some of those injuries, the Justin Thomas, Ruffin had an illness, I think isn't good because I know. Last year, you can just chalk injuries would just hamper that entire season. This year, if they stay healthy, though, I really like this team. I like the players they have. Meyer Wool is actually like one of my new favorite players this season. I think he had team high 32 points, right, against Akron after he missed the game time shot against Kansas State. Here you go. Here's some more shots.
He had 17 straight points for BG at one point coming out of the second half.
And he was a late transfer, too.
Yeah.
He was kind of late addition as well. So I think they'll be fine. If you stay healthy, you kind of get some wins underneath your belt with this next upcoming stretch. You go into February. When that upcoming stretch comes with the 2 Northeast Ohio teams, Akron, Kent, Miami, you get a win, maybe 2. you play your best ball going into March, they'll be just fine. But the key is staying healthy and also shoot the ball better to start the game so you're not so much in a rut, in a hole at the start of the game, so you don't have to keep coming from behind all the time. So.
And for some reason, it's not only at the start, it's at home. And
Mm-hmm.
Simon mentioned this post-game. I did digging to find the numbers, and I don't know exactly what it is. He doesn't either. At home, in 11 games, they're shooting 32.3% from deep. In away games, 6 of them, smaller sample size, but still 38.1%. It's a 6% difference between home and away. Now, they are shooting better at home in terms of overall shots, and it's nearly identical in free throws. But for some reason, there's a lid on the rim when they shoot from beyond the arc at home, and they need to figure that out because you cannot shoot 32% in front of your home crowd and expect to win.
This is away from even like BG men's basketball discussion. I wonder how much of that is they just put up less shots on the road and therefore maybe like, you know, you do something for a while and then you stop for a minute and then you come back to it and you can't do it again.
It could be.
I wonder how much of that is they're taking too many shots at
He
home.
mentioned that. He said maybe we just need to take less shots in practice and just go out there and let it
because
rip.
there is something to be said. You know, you travel same day or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't get as many shots up as you would at home. I wonder if you just like go out there. Maybe you're too stupid to realize that you maybe can't do it, and then you just get up there with confidence and you shoot instead.
The
of
one
having
thing about
too much
Simon
shooting.
and his staff is they are a very analytical-driven group. They believe a lot in the analytics. They track everything throughout practices. They track everything in games. They look at analytics a lot of times for answers of what they need to do going forward. So I wouldn't be shocked if in practices in this next week leading into things that they do go a little less volume.
I would just be interested to see how that would affect.
So we'll see if there is a difference. Maybe we'll find out if they did change practice at all. But I wouldn't be shocked if they go less volume just to try to see if it changes anything. Because obviously what they're doing right now, coming back for home games, is not exactly working in terms of three-point shooting.
Well, they're coming back against an Eastern Michigan team that's kind of so-so. I know that they beat Cincinnati in non-conference play, but they're still kind of okay. Start the year another 2-3 as well. But you had back-to-back home games against Miami and Akron, the two teams that were in the championship game last year, and you hosted an undefeated Miami team that had $3 tickets, and you have all this kind of expectations. It was a big crowd there, and you really don't see that a lot at the Stroh Center unless it's Toledo, just to be frank. So you kind of had that pressure, and then you have Akron, the back-to-back champions in the tournament, and then you kind of do the same thing again, or you get into a bigger hole to start the game. So I think having a home game that maybe doesn't have as much pressure, because I do agree with maybe they just look a little tight sometimes with their shot selections from home compared to on the road. I think maybe Eastern Michigan can be kind of a get-right game for them towards the weekend.
Yeah, and I don't hate Eastern and Western back-to-back before you go into that Toledo game, because I really do think if you look at last year on the road against Toledo, that was a pivotal turning point in the season when they got that upset win, and I think it's going to be very much the same this year. I think if they come out with a win there, it's going to give them a ton of confidence going forward for the rest of that conference schedule. I think if you go into Toledo against the Rockets team that was ravaged by the portal, that's not as good as they have been in recent years, especially when you just look at the roster and the talent that's on that team. Todd Kowalczyk's team is not as talented as it has been in the past few years when they were winning the conference regular season championship basically every year. If you aren't able to get a win in Savage Arena after, let's say, you put back-to-back wins against Eastern and Western, I think it could be a deflator for the rest of the season. So I think that is the next most important game up on that schedule.
I do think, now looking at it, that I like the way it's not good in the win department, the difficulty of the first 5 games that you had. But even, like, say you win the next 2, you lose to Toledo, that could be deflating. But you said Buffalo you don't think is really that good. Central, Ball State.
I didn't think Miami was
Northern
that good
well,
either. And
true, but-
then Miami's
We
gone
have-
on to be 17-0.
We have
so.
seen Buffalo play games as well. And they, you know.
You know this, Ben. I'm not notoriously great in the hot take market.
Fair. But they don't have the world's hardest schedule after that Toledo game.
No.
either.
They
And
don't.
so it'll be a good, you know, if they do somehow lose to that Toledo game, which is probably going to be that turning point of the season either way, there is the ability to climb out of that before you have Toledo back in the Stroh Center.
And I think my area of concern comes if something goes awry against Eastern and Western. I know these are teams that are like 3 in a row, with Toledo actually right above Bowling Green. So you've got 4 teams in a row in 6, 7, 8, 9 place in the conference right now. Don't even try it.
He did, not me.
Turn around, buddy.
Okay,
there you go.
I mean, did we think anyone else was going to do it other than Ben?
Anyways, you've got Eastern, Western, Toledo right in a row. Eastern and Western, these are games you can win, and with as close as you've been able to play against, they competed with Kent and Akron. They competed hard. I mean, those are games that you should win, in my opinion. I think talent-wise, I think coaching-wise.
I think the Akron game would have been a big upset for them.
Would have been huge.
But I think the Kent game, you should have won that one.
They should have won that one.
Usually, you're going to have 1 or 2 games out of a 31-game slate where either you should have won it and you gave it up, or you shouldn't have won it and you won it by the other team giving it up. That's going to be the game we look back, whether it's a good season or a bad season. That Kent State game is going to be the one, they should have had that one.
And so I think, even if you do lose this Toledo game, I don't think it, sets the tone for the rest of the season completely. If you win those other 2, I mean, you're still getting up to 500 conference record, as I recall. Because 2 and 3 right now. So if you go 2 and 1 over the next 3, your 500 conference record, I think you're still comfortably in a place where over the rest of your schedule, you're still looking at making the tournament, but it doesn't prove anything.
All I'm saying,
so I think, I get what you're saying about the Toledo. I think all of the upside is there. I don't think there's a ton of downside there as long as you take care of business against the 2 Michigan teams.
Well, the reason I look at that, too, is we're talking about getting a win over one of these top teams. If we still do view Toledo as a upper echelon team, which they're on the borderline with BG right now, that'd be 4 straight losses against those teams. That would mean the only one that you would have beaten is Ohio, who, to be honest, was pretty depleted themselves because they had the toughest non-conference schedule out of any MAC team.
And Ohio's 4-1 right now, and that's the only MAC loss they've had is Bowling Green, but they haven't really faced any top teams except Buffalo, and they just beat Buffalo, but also we don't know exactly how much stock to put in for
top
Buffalo.
team, right?
Yeah, well, Ohio just faced a lot of good teams in non-conference, and they got really beat up. And now they've had time facing these MAC teams where they're starting to get back into the groove. So anytime you look at those top teams, normal top teams, Miami, Ohio, Akron, Toledo, Kent, you have to really try your hardest against those teams because those are the best coaches in the MAC. Those 5 right there.
Yeah.
So in terms of an Eastern game, you can outcoach an Eastern. You can outcoach a Western. It is so hard to outcoach those top 5 teams. And what makes them so hard, that's why Bowling Green's lost to Kent and Akron for the past 5 years consecutively. Because they scheme so well against you that they get out to that 10-0 run. And you're playing from behind the rest of the game.
Yeah, the team's too good now. We're just all... it's just a statement victory is what they need.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to wait a little bit to do it. Because I don't know... I mean, Toledo's pretty much your best bet.
Toledo, they faced twice in pretty quick succession. They don't face Akron again.
That's
Ohio again.
That's playing a contemporary, so to speak. That's not necessarily the statement you want to make.
It's not like the elite top. Because I mean, it's
the only chances they have to do that again is Miami and Kent.
And in my opinion, you have to take one. Otherwise, you might fall into that mid-tier realm where you win a tournament game, maybe 2, and then
I think the most important thing though, and this is kind of and it could be a 2-bid MAC this year. Hopefully it is.
That'd be pretty cool.
It hasn't been since 1999 because of the NCAA and the way it works. But the benefit of being in a 1-bid MAC traditionally is it doesn't really matter how pretty it looks in the regular season. As long as you can get into the conference tournament healthy and on a roll at that point of the year, you can sneak a win in the conference tournament and punch yourself a ticket to the big dance. But I think the more important thing for this team is going to be healthy moving into that tournament, because if they avoid a freak fall in missing the tournament, and let's say hopefully they can slot anywhere from 3 to 6 in there, and avoid a really tough matchup first round, they're going to have a shot if they're healthy.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, the getting on a hot streak going into it definitely plays more into it than whatever we view as a statement win. Because I was thinking about it.
Because in the end, it doesn't. What are we going to move up the mid-major top 25 rankings?
Right,
Like
who
big
cares?
win.
How dare you disrespect that right now on this show?
Yeah.
How
well,
dare
you know
you?
what,
Yeah.
Tyler? Another point.
Maybe we rank Miami NCAA. How about that?
So here-
17-0, only undefeated team in the country, not ranked, by the way.
Yeah,
Put that out there.
So here's a question for you specifically, Tyler, because I was just thinking about this.
That's your name.
Last year's Toledo team, you would agree better than this one's?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
follow-up question. Would you consider Bowling Green at Toledo, they won, like right by the buzzer pretty much, a statement win?
I think for that season, yeah.
And how much did it matter? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that.
I agree with
you.
I think that mattered a ton in terms of the season, though, because if and it's everything surrounding the game. That's what mattered last year. Right before that game, it was announced Trey Thomas was out for the year with a broken leg.
Mm-hmm.
That team was in the dumps. They were in the midst of a big losing streak. They go into Savage Arena, upset Toledo. That propelled them on that big winning streak up until the final game of the season. That let them get into the tournament. So I think if you are able, and it's all because it's a rivalry. If this was against a Miami, I don't think it'd be as
it
big.
Carry the weight. It doesn't give you the momentum either.
And I agree with
Todd Simon circles this game for people that come here. He is from Michigan. He knows the importance of the Battle of I-75. Yes, it may be more important in football, but this is still a rivalry game. They treat it as such. You want to beat Toledo, and if you do, it gives you a huge confidence boost.
Yeah, I agree contextually as well because, like I said, you're a good enough team to win games. Now your bar is set much higher, and a statement win now is not just taking a win over your rival. A statement win is to take a win over one of the top teams.
Yeah.
To prove that you could also be one of the top teams. That's what they're gunning for to begin with. I mean, the team's too good to try and be the best of the mid-tier. You want to be one of those, top 4 or 5.
And
I agree.
that's kind of where my question marks lie. Not that I think would be huge for this team at face value. Get a win against your rival at your rival.
Yeah.
Get some momentum. They're one of the better teams of the next couple games too. Eastern and Western are a little bit worse right now, at least as far as we know.
I think there has been a huge hole opened up in terms of the roster, though, in terms of where you trust your depth to be. Because if you just look at the roster with the kind of absence, we'll call it, of Ruffin and Thomas being 100%, your next guard off the bench is Mekhi Leach. Mekhi Leach is good for a freshman. It's obvious he's not fully ready to be put into that spot as the third man off the bench yet. If you have a forward go down, a wing type player to go down, the next guy you're calling up after Myar Wool is Camden Carroll, another freshman, not exactly ready to be in that position yet. Aiden Goins is your next big man off the bench. He hasn't proven ready to be able to step into that spot yet. He's as spotty as any player on this team this year. Very streaky and honestly not the best defender. And outside of that, you're very thin at forward. And I really do think the guards are a little thinner in terms of depth than we thought they were. I don't think Jason Kimbrough Jr. has added as much as he would have hoped he would. In this recent stretch, Todd Simon's really tightened up that rotation. Kimbrough's been left out of it. It's really been Leach and maybe Carroll getting off the bench outside of Wall, Ruffin, and Thomas. So I think you do have to ask some questions there about how deep is this team really, especially if they were to suffer another injury. Are there the pieces there to be able to step up? I don't think we have the answers to that yet.
Yeah, it's just a tough spot to not have those answers because I feel like, with the time that Simon's now been here, I do, and a healthy team, even if they're not all contributing or clicking as at the,
well,
we believe they could.
It doesn't help when you have to add 10 new players 3 years in a row and make it all gel every single year.
And I think it's just a difficult
He knew
position.
he was going
No,
to.
he knew but it's just the
do
challenge that you inherently face.
Well,
and,
yeah.
It just adds another layer of complexity when stuff like this happens that
I do think
is a
last
barrier
year-
he has to go against.
I do think last year when injuries happened, I did feel more confident in the depth.
Which
Now
is
that you
interesting
mentioned that because
we thought the depth on this year's team was better, and I don't know if it is.
And the starting 5 of last year's team can't hold a candle to the starting 5 of this year's team.
I think the difference is this year's team may be more talented, but last year's team had more experience.
Yeah.
This year's team is a lot younger.
There isn't anybody really on the bench that I can think like, I mean, if somebody in the starting lineup takes a season-ending like catastrophic injury, you're in pretty poor shape. Yeah, because you're gonna give big minutes to somebody that. So
what's interesting now too? Myra Wool's averaging over 20 points over the past 3 games, which are the 3 games he started this year. If you're Todd Simon, you're not going to take him out of the starting 5. He'll be starting against Eastern. So now that puts you in a position that you're going to start Ruffin and you're going to start Wool, which also leaves you with the 2 big men down low, Towns and Glover, along with Campbell. Your only consistent guy off the bench is going to be Ruffin. After Ruffin, you're going to those young guys. Whereas last year, I think you did have a couple more, maybe less talented, but experienced guys to step up into the role. It really is, at this point, a solid 6 or 7 man rotation. I don't know if they have a solid 8 man rotation right now. Especially if a Sam Towns gets into foul trouble. Yeah. You bring in Aiden Goins. Aiden Goins does not add the defense Sam Towns does. He might add close to the same offense, but it's just a major step down, especially on the defensive end.
I do feel like if you had an injury to the big men, it would be way more catastrophic, which you touched on as well.
I think if like Glover, if something happens to him
or Towns, knock on wood,
you can be disappointed in what Glover's done in terms of the box score and rebounding and points. If you watch the games, he does a lot. He's a great perimeter defender for his size. He does a lot that is not in the box score.
Yeah, but I also feel the same way about Mekhi Leach, kind of like we had 2 years ago with Paige Kohler, and the way that if he's given enough, like if a guard gets injured, he's given enough time, I feel like he would step up in a
he definitely out of the 2 freshmen,
back that up, really.
Out of
I
him
do feel good about him.
Yeah, out of him and Carroll from day one, Artie Foster and I, the beat team, have all agreed he is ahead of Carroll in terms of progression of being ready to play. If there is a young guy on the team that, like you said, if was given minutes, I would also trust Leach to step into that
role. And just by names of having Leach and Kimbrough, that's 2 that are fine to put in the starting lineup. I don't know that you have. I mean, I don't feel great about Camden Carroll having to move in the absence of a Glover or a Towns.
It almost feels like watching Carroll. He's still trying to figure out exactly where he fits in at the D1 level.
And even in a season-ending situation, outside of that, and a short-term situation, like even a couple of games could be really poor if it's bad placed.
Final question, just to kind of wrap this one up so we can move on, because we've got plenty of women's basketball to talk through too. Tyler, all these things, the depth being young definitely makes it more difficult for this season. You could look at it as a good thing too, that you have opportunities to give young guys minutes, but I think it's also really, difficult in today's day and age to have continuity from year to year. I think you kind of have to look at it in the vacuum of 1 year. So where's our expectation at? I have a hard time seeing people being satisfied with the outcome of this year unless they can win a couple tournament games.
I think the floor is win at least 1 tournament game. I think Simon needs to win at least 1 tournament game. He won a tournament game 2 years ago. Last year's a freak. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they got there was a miracle, and then being faced up against Akron, which last year's Akron team is one of the best Mid-American Conference teams in history. It just is. They were never going to win that game. They didn't keep it close regardless, but they were never going to win it. So I think a good year would be winning at least two MAC tournament games and getting yourself around that championship contention. I think a solid year would be a MAC tournament win. But I think anything less than a MAC tournament win,
you're going to start to have some...
You got to have some tough questions.
Yeah.
Tough conversations, tough questions to be asked if Todd Simon only has one MAC tournament win in 3 years.
Well, that's going to wrap up the basketball men's portion for today. That team will be back in action next Saturday, January 17th, with a 1 p.m. tip-off against Eastern Michigan at the Stroh. Lucas, Tyler, who's on that one?
I'm sorry, for Eastern Michigan.
Yes.
Oh, well, it's Foster Rosti in TBD. I got a schedule.
And TBD getting on the call. Love to see that.
You can
Good
read
job,
you can read a
Lucas.
sidebar from me on
Yes.
bgfalconmedia.com. if you'd
Recap and
like.
sidebar will be from Tyler Calvert's Arnie Breaker, though.
As always, check out
But full
BG Falcon
coverage,
Media.
yes.
BGFalconmedia.com to keep up
Now you're
with
making
any
me
of
feel like
our
I don't do my
content
job,
around that.
Holden.
You don't do
I just like
that.
to grill you a little bit, you know that.
You have a job?
Sometimes.
We're going to move
Sometimes.
on. Lucas, you want to feel like you have a job. Now is your chance to shine because
Shine?
women's basketball currently sitting right now in 6th in the Mid-American Conference, 2-2 through their conference slate, 9-6 overall. Lucas, what we're going to do a little bit differently. I want to know the high and the low for you for this team over break.
Well, good question, actually. The high over break, I would say, is just getting on that win streak, winning, I want to say it was 7 or 8 games in a row. I'm counting real quick because they had all those games in the home. I want to say it was 7. And I think a lot of those wins was over winter break when they played.
Kentucky State.
Yeah.
Defiance
I don't want to say
Lords.
lesser schools, but they're lesser schools. I mean, Kentucky State, Defiance, Lords,
They
Lemoyne.
compete on a different level. It's no
Lemoyne.
slight to them.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, you take it for what it is, but the low for me, I would say at this point, is not from a result standpoint, but more so this team, just shooting wise, is just not been up to their standard past previous seasons, and I think people knew that coming into the year. They knew this team was going to be built more on the defensive end, and they've kind of shown that past couple of games. They've kind of ranked into the top third in the MAC in terms of defensive points allowed per game. But, I think if you look at a lot of their losses they've had, even if you look at the Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan game as the more recent ones, it's just shooting. The first half, Eastern was tight. Both teams kind of weren't shooting the ball well. The third quarter, Sissy Elko and the Eagles kind of got shooting right, and they kind of came out of the locker room firing, while Bowling Green kind of stayed the same, and they were just inconsistent the whole game. Central Michigan shooting was awful. It was pretty bad. I'll pull up the stats here in a moment, but you lose by 12 at home. That's the only loss they've had at home this season, which could also be kind of a positive as well. You've done at home so far this season, but shooting. And again, NIU, even this past win they had this past weekend, a good team win against an NIU team that's fighting for just anything. It's a first-year whole coaching staff and a lot of first-year players, but they still didn't shoot the ball well. They won that game on Saturday, at least in my opinion, because of the defense. The defense was absolutely locked down. NIU won the first quarter, I believe, 16-12, and then afterwards, the second quarter and the third quarter, they held them to 9 points in 20 minutes of basketball, which is really good. Also, that's also credit to NIU, is just the worst offensive scoring team in the MAC, but at the same time, Bowling Green also has been a really solid defensive team. Obviously led by Janaea Donahue. Paige Clore's got to step up defensively as well. Kaya Woods has been a good defensive player as well. And Tay Ellis, they were a very disciplined defensive team in that game, which is why I think they came away with the win. But, that's definitely my low at this point. Is the shooting still worries me. They're halfway through the season now at this point. And if it's not Paige Kohler or Donahue, I don't know where the third option is. It's not been consistent. Some games it's been Kaya Woods. Some games, the last couple of games, it's been Kendall Moxie, which has been fantastic for her. I've envied her back-to-back games for our BG Falcon Media Food and Drink Out Player of the Game. Good plug. Happy for her. She does pretty much everything Fred Shamil asks her to do. One game was Taya Ellis, but she fought through injuries, and she's now back in the lineup. One game, Jasmine Fern, that's when she got into the starting five the first time in her career. She hit a couple of big threes. It's just not been consistent of who's that third scoring threat. And at least in my mind, if you look at Kohler's shooting, it's not been the best, at least to her standards, the past 3 seasons. She's their go-to shooter and go-to leader, floor manager, general, whatever you want to name her. I mean, she's everything for that team, her and Donahue. And if she isn't on fire from 3, at least the start of the game, she kind of tries to shoot herself out of a rut because she really is their only go-to player. They set plays for her to shoot threes or for mid-range jumpers. And if they don't fall, then it's like, okay, Donahue. And if it's not Donahue, then it's who's got the hot hand for this game. So nothing they can't fix, but that is something that I would look forward to.
And, I think this Wednesday is their next game. They're going to go to Kalamazoo, play Western Michigan. After that, they've got a stretch of 8 days where they play the teams currently in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the conference, which are a combined 11-1 conference record overall.
Yeah.
If there's ever been a prove it chunk of the season for this team. It's very closely upon us.
Yeah, well, this year for the MAC for women's basketball is so 180 and so much parity. I think if you look at the results, besides the NIU win at the start of the season, you would have flipped the results because they did beat a Kent State team that were the preseason favorite, which was a good win, despite Kent State struggling to start the year. And then you lose to Eastern and Central Michigan. Last year, you would have just flipped that, and you would say went 2-1 and probably would have lost to Kent just based off of the last year results. And then you mentioned the next 3 teams they play. Miami has definitely been a step better. They were a tournament team last year. Ohio has been a very surprise team this year. 10-4, 4-0 in MAC play. No one expected that. They were a team that missed the tournament last year, and they're one of the most explosive offensive teams in the MAC this season. UMass, similar to like the men's, we don't really know a whole much about them because they're new to the conference this year. They're really good. Turns out they're really, really good. And the player that's only close to Donahue in terms of getting the MAC title in steals, Donahue leads the MAC in steals by a wide margin, is the player on UMass whose name's escaping me right now, so I'll double check it for a second. But UMass still has a very good squad as of right now. With those 3 games, the good news is 2 of them are at home with Miami and Ohio after Western Michigan. But also the bad news is you go to at UMass. That's the only time you have UMass this year, and it's as far
as you could take a trip,
you get.
yeah.
So,
Anna Franks. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and I have Franks.
Yep. Yep, Franks. So, it's very weird because I would like to predict, who is in the upper echelon of teams. I do know for sure Ball State is that. Ball State, Miami. I do think Eastern Michigan is a lot better than people give them credit for. Elko has a much better team around her this year. I do think BG will be there in the end, but I mean, Kent State, I'm still waiting for Kent State to get going. They're the team that has the most familiar names, the most experienced players that have won stuff in this league before. Buffalo completely took a nosedive. They're last in the conference after losing Becky Burke and Nolani Cornfield and Chella Watson. So, I mean, they're a team that's unrecognizable outside of Paulo Lopez and their starting 5. So, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's so up and down, and there's no easy game in the MAC. I think that's ever the case because if you look through the first quarter and a half against NIU, you would probably say NIU was a better team.
Yeah, and like the Eastern game, it wasn't like the biggest blowout loss of all time. It was a road trip, but coming into it off of a 7-game winning streak, playing hot, and I guess an Eastern Michigan team that I don't think is that good. I mean, they're 1-3 in the MAC right now. They're 7-7 overall, and they lost the 2 difficult games. You're not going to beat Michigan State at Michigan State, and you're not going to beat Indiana at Indiana. That's fine for them. This isn't an Eastern Michigan women's basketball show. But my point is, that's a team that hasn't really, proven much of anything.
It's
their marquee wins over Detroit Mercy and now us.
Yeah, it's less of losing and more of losing by 10. If you had lost and kept it within like a bucket or 2 buckets or something like that, I would have felt a lot better. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like Eastern Michigan was 10 points better. Like that just seems outside the realm of believability at least. And then to follow that up with a game that you shot 1 for 16 from 3-point and you just didn't shoot. Like I was at that game because it was before the hockey game, so I was in town. I actually sat down and watched it. That was maybe the most egregious 3-point shooting performance I've seen at Bowling.
Yeah, and that
was horrific.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about in my opening monologue, if you want to say. But the 3-point, the shooting just in general has not been up to standard. The 3-point shooting's been really bad. It just hasn't been good.
It had been getting better.
It did,
and then it just the last couple it has fallen back.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't expect to beat these top teams, get a MAC championship, contend for it, shooting the way they happen. And a lot of it, they're passing up good looks, good opportunities to shoot, and kind of just over-dribbling and taking the shot clock all the way down, and either shot clock expiring or jacking up a highly contested shot that's just not falling. But other words, it's really weird. It's weird because last year was kind of the opposite. They had an incredible offense, and then defensively, how are you going to kind of buckle down and seal a win out? Now it's kind of the complete opposite. But I did know Shamil talked preseason about he wanted a defensive-oriented team and all, which is good because that's the roster you have. Mm-hmm. That's the makeup you have. They're better defensively than they are offensively. But you still need more than 2 players that you can rely on to score and get double digits. So, we'll see. There's still plenty of time, but that's been kind of a big talking point up to this point.
You talked about the shooting too, 27.4% from deep as a team, and then being more defensive oriented. Has there been any difference in terms of how the spacing is offensively, or kind of the personnel available for the shots that has led to that? Or do you think it's more not really a problem with spacing or anything, or plays that are being run, just they're just missing shots that are there?
I think it's a bit of both. I would say as at the start, it was kind of personnel and just kind of figuring out the pieces and figuring out the plays and who's open. The past 3 games have been just confidence, in my opinion. I think some players or some shots are just not shooting the ball right. They're not getting their feet set. They're passing up good looks in other areas where they would have taken that shot before and would have made it. And I think when you're, as a team, not just one individual person, as a team, you're in a shooting drought, I think that's kind of frequent or kind of normal for that to happen, but someone's just going to need to step up and start taking those threes and knocking them down. And it can't always be Kohler, because Kohler, it doesn't matter how well she's shooting the ball. Kohler's your primary scorer. She's going to shoot no matter what. I'm talking like the Lauren Gherkins of the world, the Jasmine Ferns of the world.
Well, because those are the two that I'm looking at in terms of attempts. So Kohler leads at 103, Gherkins second at 84, then Fern is 81. Outside of that, you go down to Cecil and Miller, 36 and 28 attempts. And then you go to Kyle Woods and Donahue with 16 apiece. So is there somebody maybe outside of the top 3 that you think should be getting more attempts up that you think can make them? Because looking at percentage-wise, Cecil's 36, Miller's 36, Woods is 40, almost 44, but they're all in very limited numbers.
It does seem to me at least Kaya Woods is maybe your best chance on the team to get open.
Yeah, I was
and,
about,
and
about
granted,
to say
she doesn't have a lot of height, and is a block 3 is rare, but at her height could happen quite a bit. I think she's the best chance. At least the games that I've watched, they do seem like they have a problem getting open for shots, and then when they do get open, not making them is a different. A different argument, but they do have a struggle getting open. She feels like she can get open pretty easily. She's quicker than almost anybody on the floor. Certainly smaller, can move around better. So, and she actually shoots pretty well, I think, in the limited sample size that she's.
It might be a small sample size though, because last year at Akron, she was 29.5% on 44 attempts.
Yeah, she was hurt too. I mean, she was flying through injury pretty much all during Akron. But I was going to say Woods' original...
Or sorry, that was 2 years ago. Yeah, she was injured last year. That was 2 years ago at Akron.
To original point, Tyler, I would say Woods. She is more, if you watch her, she's turbo, and she'll just drive inside and kick it back out or put up a highly contested shot. But she has hit a couple of threes before. Has she attempted a lot? No, it's a small size. I would like her just to attempt more. Get open looks, try to see if you can knock more down and help out in that category. She has been inserted to the lineup kind of during the middle conference play when they kind of came back home for that long home stretch. And she's a veteran guard that needs to kind of be next to Kohler. They had Kira Miller at the start of the year as a freshman, got her a couple of reps as a starter. Now she's kind of coming off the bench more. So if I had to pinpoint one player, I'd say Woods.
And, this is a team. I'm really, really zeroed in on the Central Michigan matchup. I'm hopeful for them that Woods or somebody, but probably Woods is able to step up, because, I mean, I was looking over the box score from the Central Michigan game, and I mean, it just doesn't if you shoot even kind of average, that looks like a game you win pretty easily. I mean, you out-rebounded, only had 4 more turnovers and had more steals. Yep. You were better at the line, and you were just abysmal. I mean, dreadful.
Yep. Yeah. I would honestly say I would be surprised if Central isn't a top 4 team this year, and I would be shocked if Maddie Morrison's not in the MAC Player of the Year conversations or runner-up. She's really good. She's a MAC Freshman of the Year last year, and she's already taken another step towards her game. So the Chippewas definitely are a much better team this year.
They had a lot of depth too.
They did.
They got a lot coming off.
They do. They're very tall. They're a very tall team.
They were an incredibly tall team.
Which is very impactful in the game of women's college basketball, is having 7 of your 15 players on the roster 6 foot or above. Yeah, that's going to play a good factor, and they're all 5s or power forwards. The Eastern lost too. They didn't have a true 5 playing. Ellis returned that game, but she didn't start. They had Gherkin playing the 5. She's not a true 5. She's more of a 4. Ellis this year wasn't even a 5. She was a forward last year. Now she's playing the 5, and she's been great when she's on the floor and healthy. Problem is just her staying healthy and consistent because she's a really, really good player. She's an incredible rebounder. She's very lanky, can play well defense as well offensively. It's just finding her good looks and everything. But Kendall Moxie has been fantastic the past couple of games. First double-double of her career against Central Michigan. Led the team in scoring against NIU, was 2 rebounds shy of back-to-back double-doubles. Obviously, NIU resulted in a win. But if you can get that production consistently for Moxie, either off the bench, I mean, that changes the team. And if other players can step up and shoot the ball better and add more around that, man, I mean, that's a really good addition to have off the bench. Because, again, this team, I wouldn't say is not that deep. I do think they do have some good pieces on the bench. They just don't have many players. You know, this is not a 15-man roster or on this team. They don't have many players to kind of look for. You know, if you look just pure offensively, Moxie, Miller, Fern, those are kind of your options, really. You have a lot of defensive options with Blaine Fitzpatrick and Cecil, and obviously Cecil can give you offensive looks as well. But that's really about it. You know, Lila Harrison's a sophomore, but she's a more defensive substitute as well. That's going to come in and get stops every now and then. That hasn't played a whole lot. So it's just trying to find the right balance and your right subs as well down the season. But similar to what we're talking about with the men's as well, I know this team and Shamil got wins over Kent and Toledo last year, which was really big. And he beat Kent State already this year again. You beat Toledo, you beat Ball State, or you beat this Miami team, you beat someone that's top, you change the whole season, especially this 3-game coming up. If you can take 2 of the 3, first of all, you got to beat Western Michigan. You can't lose to Western, but you win 2 of the 3 coming up, you put yourself in a really good position, and you're going to have a lot of momentum carrying as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're coming off of a win against NIU, but I'm with you. You've got to beat Western first. And
coached by BGSU women's basketball legend Kate Octor. And
I think it's okay. I think I would like to see them win more, but I think it's okay with these top teams. Like, if you go 1-2, if you pick up a win, that's understandable. Mm-hmm. But if you lose to Western or you go 0-3 against those teams, I think you're in a not great place at all.
No, you're not. And, I mean, they're still in good position. Good to grind out that NIU win. You're 2-2. Mac play 9-6 overall. You go on a little bit of a run here. You're set it off pretty good. It's just also what I went back to saying, I don't know. I'm still figuring out who really are those top teams outside the Ball State, Miami.
It feels,
it's really
I think,
weird.
a little bit harder to tell than some of the men's teams. I feel like they kind of give us a clearer picture of what's on the table.
Well, we know Akron is not the top team for women's. We know that.
We do know this.
My word. My word. And Buffalo this year.
That does seem to be usually the way it is, though, between men's and women's college basketball. Is I think the men's team, there is a clear difference. Maybe not at the top between the upper echelon, but there's a difference between the teams that are really good and the teams that you know are not going to make the tournament. Yeah. And it's just figuring out how they stack up against each other in those like top 6. Women's basketball, I feel like outside of maybe 2 teams each year, almost anyone can have a shot at it. Unless there's like a Ball State team from last year that's just head and shoulders above everyone.
Yeah. I will also say, just to lead Ben Quark into this, Donnie has been the best player this season, in my opinion. She has been fantastic. This past season, she shot more shots in the gym than she ever has over the summer, and now she added offense to her game. She's averaging just over 12 points per game for the team, and that's second on the team behind Kohler. And also while still being a dominant defensive player in steals, blocks, rebounding, etc. And now she's taken a huge step forward this year offensively. Like, she is turning herself into a complete basketball player, and it's fantastic to see. I mean, she's been incredible for sure. And even missing a couple of games due to injury. You know, she's taken a couple of threes. She's made a couple of threes this year. I don't know if she attempted one last year, just off the top of my head. You know, she's very strong finishing to the basket, driving inside. You know, good at getting rebounds, like I mentioned, and she, above all, is a leader on this team. She's literally second in command with Kohler just as a sophomore. She's still a relatively young player. So I think that's really huge to see, because if she keeps this up, my word.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good thing that she has, too.
I was waiting for him over there to jump in.
By the way, she has attempted 22 3-pointers last year, which is actually more than this year.
Well, we're like not even halfway done with the season, Tyler.
I know,
Thanks for
but
the
I'm
sample
just
size.
saying she did attempt 22 last
Hey,
year.
let's let Ben get his.
That's
Those-
crazy. I didn't think that.
Those of us that have been sitting in the Jenna Donahue corner for this entire time,
Number one stand.
I don't need to say anything.
Are you the head of the fan club?
Number one fan, yeah.
He's the founder.
I'm the one handing
Yeah.
her the water bottle while she's punching the daylights out of the Mid-American Conference. Heck yeah, baby.
You need your pin. We need to get a
Yeah,
Jenna
dude,
Donahue
Jenna
fan
Gotta
Donahue
have
club
Ben Korak in your corner.
I
for
love
the
it.
president, CEO, and founder.
I love it.
Wrapping for this, wrapping this hour kind of similar to how we did with men's. I feel like I already said this stretch, specifically the Miami, Ohio, Massachusetts, but really the next 4 games are super, super telling about like what this team's going to be able to do. But also like, I feel like more critical. We're not at the point where we're having like tough conversations about the brass at the top of the team yet. However, I think this team has more pressure than Todd Simon's squad does to get a win.
Yes, they do. They
Like considerably.
I mean, I think this coaching staff is fantastic. I think they're really smart, and I think adding Katie Hempling this year is fantastic, like a great addition. I can't wait to do a feature story on her pretty soon for Falcon Media here very soon. But you got to get a MAC tournament win. It's been back-to-back years. You were one and done. Get that win in your belt, man. Get out of the first round, make a run. You know that this team needs it. You go from losing the MAC championship game my freshman year to Toledo as a 1 and 2 seeds last year, Robin Freilich, to losing the quarterfinals round to Buffalo back-to-back years. You don't have Chella Watson or the Buffalo Bulls to worry about. Just to be quite frank, it'll be someone else. But, got to get that win, man. You got to get that win.
I will also acknowledge it's not the most fair comparison to make between the two teams. You look at the men's side, Todd Simon came into this role taking over for a team that was just lackluster, to say the least. Fred Schmiel stepping in for a coach who's now coaching at Michigan State. I mean, obviously, the expectations were in different places coming into both of these tenures, but for their part of it, Todd Simon's put up a tournament win, an appearance both years, and kind of hard to count anything of last year with all the injuries as kind of hard to be too tough on that team for those results. It feels like, especially with. I felt this way more last year. I'll have to see how the rest of this plays out because I haven't I don't know that I have my fully developed opinion on it. Last year felt like a year you should have taken a win.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
So
I think that was a really
know.
good team last year.
I think it'll be some
I-
tense
I-
watching for a few, but
Chella
definitely
Watson
I
some,
think
was
last
disgusting
year the problem was their matchup, that they didn't get themselves
This
higher in the
is-
standings before
well,
running into Chella
but then
Watson.
why
Chella
didn't you,
Watson,
right?
Yeah.
Chella Watson was disgusting.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you look at Shamiel's first year, they were 16 and 15, and then last year they were, I want to say, 18 and 15. They had a 2-game difference from year 1 to year 2, 2 more wins in the MAC than he did in previous years. But the MAC last year was so top-heavy with the Ball States, Toledo's, Kent State, and Buffalo, where they found themselves in 5th. Well, who fell to 4th? Buffalo. And Buffalo was the one team that they just haven't beaten, and they just haven't beaten them yet since Shamiel's been there. For some reason, it's just been a boogeyman team. He got that win over Kent State and Toledo underneath his belt, and I think that would have been a better matchup in the MAC tournament if they matched up and not matched up against the Bulls, because if you go back to that game, because I remember it was a very good basketball game. It was back and forth up until the last play of the game, but Bowling Green had a big lead in that first half. They were the better team, but then towards the end, Chella Watson took over, and Nolani Cornfield got a steal on a last stop to end the game. It was a close loss. That's what it comes down to in the MAC tournament, man. It comes down to one play, and you got to make it, and they didn't do it. So, but I still agree with your overarching part. They need to get a win last year. I mean, you had freshman Donahue, Kohler, Porter, Velasco, and Fleming. I mean, you got to get at least a win, and they didn't. But so past is the past. But got to move forward, move on.
Got to move forward, and they'll start to do so, continuing their conference play this Wednesday, January 14th, when they travel up to Kalamazoo to take on the Western Michigan Broncos with a 7 p.m. tip-off. Lucas, what's the word on that one?
Adam Duffin will be on the call there in Kalamazoo, but I'll be in studio. Listen to me pregame, halftime.
Lucas in the studio
I'll be
already.
Yes. Hey, he looked at me funny. Get him.
You looking at him funny?
Get
I
him.
did. Yeah.
Well,
Get
it's
him.
on the tape, we'll say.
I did. Yeah.
No,
I did.
If you want to see how Ben looked, make sure to check out the video part of this on bgfalconmedia.com or the BG Falcon Media YouTube channel.
I also just want to make the claim Jenna Donahue's as close to Chella Watson as we've seen.
No way
all
offensively,
right.
but that's...
If she keeps developing this way, maybe, but
She's shooting 42%
You might be
from
first.
the
I like to
field.
take though. I like to
He might be
take.
first. He might not be wrong. He's just early.
I was the first to say that Javonte Campbell and Johnny Donahue were going to be great. They are currently great.
Indeed.
Just putting that out there.
I think they were
Korak,
always great.
basketball,
We just didn't
Noah.
realize.
Who was the first to realize?
Might have been Ben Korak. I
It
don't
might
know.
have been Ben
Might have
Korak. With that, we're going to take a little break because we are now into the second hour already, but we've got a ton more to talk about, especially with the hockey team that has been as hot as ever recently. So don't go anywhere because you're still listening to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM.
The BG News is Bowling Green State University's campus newspaper, published Wednesday, offering items of general interest to the broader campus community, including top local campus and city news, and state, regional, national, and international news events of significance. Key Magazine and The Obsidian are magazines that print once a semester. The BG News, publishing weekly information and entertainment from Bowling Green State University.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
We're back here in the second hour of the Zig Zone, BG Falcon Media and Falcon Media Sports Network's flagship talk show, going over everything in the world of Bowling Green athletics. Once again, I'm your host, Holden Ruck, joined by Lucas Kleinmeyer, Tyler Kavalitz, and Ben Korak today from the Falcon Media Sports Network. And before we get into hockey, I thought about this when the women's basketball result against this team got mentioned, and I know we're not completely through the athletic year yet, but I just want to talk about it. Has there ever been a sadder farewell tour than the NIU Huskies? Have they done anything, like, look across their board of what they've been able to do, or like what they have not done in basketball and football?
You got a good point.
All I
Overall,
got to
it's
say
bad.
is good.
Yeah.
You left.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah. I mean,
I don't feel bad.
They really. I feel like all the sports have not done well. I mean, men's soccer, they made the MVC tournament, but they didn't do anything really.
That
But,
doesn't count as
Real
MAC
sports
either.
we're talking about.
Yeah, but you know.
Holy. I will also
Okay,
say
Carl.
it makes it worse, at least in the basketball sense. NIU's not doing well. UMass is crushing.
Mm-hmm.
So like the new kid on the block is beating the veteran on his way out pretty bad.
And I mean,
NIU is the saddest farewell since the Pac-12, though, right?
so here's a follow up to that.
Well, that was only
How-
2 years ago, but yes.
How big of
Sure.
an overreaction was that win against Notre Dame last year in football for them? Does any of this happen if they don't
I
win that
kind
game?
of forgot that happened.
Does any of this happen if they don't win that game?
No,
I don't
because
think so.
because they are not the one that gets looked at by other conferences. It is going to be the teams that get looked at next, which is Ohio, Kent, Miami.
Yeah, but I think regionally it makes more sense. I think NIU more got looked at because
Noted
region
West
and
Mountain.
money.
NIU, I
Northern
think.
Illinois.
Well, yeah.
NIU, I think, though, out of that group was the only
But-
school that was prepared to actually make that move because of the travel
Yeah,
they
but
already
I
currently
don't
face.
but I don't think the Mountain West is like, wow, they beat Notre Dame this one time.
And I gotta tell
Like,
you, I mean, looking,
I don't think that's. I think they were definitely.
I think
that
it
was
helped
definitely a
things.
possibility before. It might have
Yeah.
boosted things along, but
No,
I think
I can see
definitely
that.
it was bound to.
I
happen
think
no
that
matter
stamped
what.
it.
Yeah.
Oh
But
yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
like looking at how they've performed this year across their sports, like, you know, Horizon League's going to be comparable. I would say maybe weaker depending on who you ask.
Because where would Ohio and Miami trade conferences to?
One of the bigger conferences that
Sunbelt?
wants to poach someone. I don't know.
That would never happen.
I know
There's
that
enough big schools
I
to
know
poach
for
away.
sure that some of those schools have been contacted by other conferences. There's been reports of that.
Where would Ohio go?
Everybody should just join the Big Ten. Make it the Big 30.
Make
Big
it the
10
bigger
SEC.
10.
Just make it. Everyone join.
Yeah.
We'll just change it from the Mid-American to
The
just-
American. Wait,
the
that
Amer-
already
Can we
exists.
just have
which
an
already
Ohio,
exists.
Can we have an Ohio conference? Just
I'm-
all
that's
Ohio
Pretty
teams.
much what the MAC is.
I know, but add like Ohio State,
Just
UC, and
Ohio.
that'd be great.
That'd be
Well,
tough.
then-
Dayton, be awesome. Ohio State win every year.
Only
but
one
who
I
cares?
like
team
that,
would
I like
win.
that.
Yeah, who cares?
Having Michigan teams is
Not
fun.
hockey though.
Just the
Oh.
Ohio State Michigan
yeah.
conference. I like that. So Ohio State,
Ooh.
Michigan State. You get the three directional Michigans.
Michi, Ohio.
Throw in Cincy, throw in Dayton, Bowling Green, Toledo.
I like it.
Kent. That's
I
tough.
like it.
That wouldn't be bad.
That's
I like
tough.
it.
I like
That
that.
would be
Let's just get Western Kentucky up here so we can have the Battle of Bowling Green.
Bowling Greens. The one other thing I'm thinking about, I mentioned the Horizon League. Mountain West is not going to be easy sledding for that football team. I would contend that's probably
Who's
going
in the
to be
Mountain West?
Boise State, UNLV.
Okay, so every 20 years, Boise State's going to get good and give them a
Well,
tough
I mean,
time.
they don't have to be. They don't have to be playoff good to be
True.
like as
No,
good
that's
as.
true.
I mean,
Fair enough.
how often is a MAC team that good on like the national level either? You know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah, forever.
I don't.
UNLV, New Mexico, San Diego State,
It's sure not going to be any easier.
Fresno
New Mexico
State.
or New Mexico State?
New Mexico.
Okay.
Not
I mean,
New
some of
Mexico
those are
State.
just like bigger schools
Yeah, but
too. because,
it's
like,
all about
Western
money.
Mass
It's all
people
about money. That's
No,
all it
in
is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's about
NIU.
they're getting a better TV deal.
Yeah,
and
like,
Yeah.
that's why.
conference
That's
package
exactly
deal.
Exposure, everything. It's all about that stuff.
Although they're going to have to spend a ton more on travel, which I don't know how much they're actually going to make more than they currently do.
I wonder if they're revenue sharing.
They are.
So that probably factors
Yeah.
into it too. That
But their
expenses.
travel is also, I don't know.
I think
But
the
there's
main
some
premise
contracts
is,
and stuff where like the rest of the league kind of
Yeah.
like half pays for.
I
like,
think
you
it's
pay for
just
some.
founded in the idea that the MAC is not as lucrative as some teams would like it to be. But
The MAC is the best conference in the country, and
Don't
I will
let
not hear
anybody tell you different.
anything else. Okay.
absolutely not.
Next topic.
Well,
Fly
we're
the
gonna wrap
flag.
that up. But I just wanted to touch on that because I thought about it. I was like, man, really going out
You're not
sad.
wrong.
Like,
You're not wrong.
But we're going to get into something that I think for fans of any Falcon sports and certainly fans of the sport has been a huge bright spot after going into break with a bit of a bad taste in the mouth. As we wrapped up the fall semester, Bowling Green hockey lost their first game against Northern Michigan and then got an overtime win against them. But Northern Michigan, the bottom feeders in the CCHA, as Dennis Williams would tell you, he was not particularly happy. I don't think any Falcons fans should have been, certainly. Yeah. But coming out of the break, starting with a 6-1 win over the United States National Team Development Program U18 squad. 6-1, big time win. You know, younger guys, might be what you expect. But the Ohio State series, I think, is easily the most important series that this team has had this year in terms of momentum. That's my take, Ben. Talk about that series a little bit.
Well, the year's only about 2 weeks old.
Well, okay, this athletic year, Ben.
Okay, thank you. Ohio State, that was great for a bunch of reasons. Seeing them take a tie in Columbus, that was great because it felt like BG had not yet played. They didn't play to their standard. They didn't play a great game, although they played well. It felt like Ohio State played well. And you still took a tie. You lost in the shootout, but the shootout doesn't matter in non-conference. It's just going to sit as a tie. So you went back to your home barn feeling pretty good, and then they took in my opinion, a decisive win over Ohio State in that game in front of your own crowd. There was some adversity in that game. You had a couple of fights and some early fights, a very long first period that they were sitting around for quite a bit and didn't really
Ben,
miss
I
a
was
beat.
in the studio, as you know. That is the longest
53,
first period of all
53
time.
minutes for 20 minutes of gameplay action it took to get through that
insane.
first period.
Average college football first quarter.
Yeah, I know. It was brutal, but it was very fun. Taking a win for the first time since 2018 was very nice for them to do. Colmore, who had kind of stunk earlier on in the season, he had 3 starts, 2 against Niagara, played okay. 1 against Minnesota State was bad. He had to rebound 2 games. He played very well in the first game against Ohio State, played great in the second game against Ohio State, took his first win of the season in that second game, and then started the first game against Fair State and was also great. Didn't the second one, but I think that was a rest thing, less of performance-based. But he has played 3 times in 2026, and he's played very, very well all 3 times, which is a positive for this team. Also, more depth added to Ohio State. Defenseman Ty Higgins, who we don't know why he didn't play the first half of the season, assuming something academic. He played his first regular season game, the first game against Ohio State, went scoreless. He's got 5 points in 3 games since, all 5 assists. He's maybe the best passer on the ice at any given time. He's been fantastic. Everybody should feel really good about where he's at going into the second half of the season. Is a huge piece on the defensive end. And yeah, you have coming up a pretty easy series against Lake State, and you head into an absolute grind of back half of your schedule, and I think the team's there for it. Honestly, I think they're ready to go, and they're playing some very good hockey right now.
I think they're on a really, really hot streak, and it could not have come as a better time. As you said, the Lake State series, one more to kind of keep the momentum rolling, but it's definitely going to turn into tougher sledding after that. Bemidji. I do want to circle back because Cole Moore, we didn't even mention the Ohio State game, only giving up the 2 goals, and the shootout went to the 6th skater for Ohio State before they put one in the net. I mean, he was as good as he's been. That arguably might have been his best outing of his 3.
It's probably his best outing since his freshman year, maybe. I might be missing, not thinking about a game last year, but it's his best outing in a while. It was his first win since, I believe, February of 2025, something like that, which was a long time coming. And, for goalies who tend to be on the more emotional side and they get streaky at times, to see him come out of break and climb out of that is big. And for, Jacob Steinman, Tyler Palmer, to underclassmen, to see the junior and what is now a veteran and Cole Moore succeeding and, leading by example is good for them. It's creating more competition between the pipes for this team, which is always a good thing. That's what you want. Makes the decision tough of Willie and the rest of the coaching staff. I don't think they'd rather have it any other way. They love having to choose instead of having the decision made for them every night.
Yeah, I feel like, in some previous years, in particular like the last 2 with Cole Moore and Christian Stover being kind of your 2-man, we saw like either of them take turns being streaky, and it felt like the point where, to me, it felt like the team was, just choosing which one of them wasn't playing bad. Now it feels like the goaltenders are all playing good, and they have the, the difficulty of it, which is a great problem to have.
A goaltender that's not streaky is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
They all are streaky aside from the greats. So it's just when you get into your streak, how long it lasts, and how little your downfall can be. Cole Moore's seems like a pretty sustainable style of play. He stood very tall. He's down to 3 goals against average now and just below a .900 save percentage. Given the stats, his first 3 starts, that is an insane feat to get down to that level.
Played really, really well to bring that back to where it is.
Yeah, exactly. But even Steinman and Palmer, both about 2.5 goals against or below and above .900 save percentages from a guy that's never played in the NCAA. 2 guys that have never played in the NCAA, one of them who never played, college hockey in any country before. So, goaltending, it makes me really excited every night to see how well they can play, because I don't know, you play well against Ohio State. There's not many CCHA teams that can say they're better than Ohio State. And not only can the Falcons say that, but the goalie room was very good.
And, also, I mean, this is an Ohio State team. You can look at their record and say whatever about, one of the worst in the Big Ten, but they just knocked off number 2 Michigan State.
They did.
So, I mean, that's it's a Big Ten team. That's a quality team, even if they're not having their best year. I mean, that's a huge win any way you slice it. And in particular, the way that the team has played, coming out of winter break here has been impressive to me too. You've got the U.S. national development team, you win 6-1. That's an exhibition, fine. But, that margin is important. You only let one in. You put up a bunch. Ferris State series, you do kind of the same thing. 3-1 and 5-1 results on those 2 nights. And I guess Ohio State, you show the ability to compete against adversity too. In the first night in Columbus, they give up a goal in the first, they give up a goal in the second, and then they score 2 in the third to force overtime, go through overtime with no score, lose on the 6th skater for Ohio State in the shootout. Still a tie because it's non-conference. And then the second night, you go 2-1 down into the second period, and then you're down 3-2 going into the final period, and then they just blow it open and 5-3 win. And I mean, the ability for the team to not play phased by that adversity is, I think, going to be just huge for them.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was a time where they weren't confident in their ability to win.
Not at all.
Which against an Ohio State is very promising, because again, you're not going to see a team the rest of the year that's as high a profile as them. So it just shows the confidence in every game you're skating into. It also helps that you had a sold out Slater Family Ice Arena against Ohio State, which does add an element to that. And, you get the energy brought to you. You don't necessarily have to bring it yourself. Ferris State did not bring many fans this past weekend, and they still managed to manufacture energy. Because Ferris State was not a great team, but, you were still able to do it. So, Lake State should be another one. You need to steamroll them, and after that, you're playing all of the teams that are ahead of you in the standings currently. You need to be playing your best hockey going into those last, I think, 5 series of the season, 5 or 6 conference series of the season. You have to be playing your best hockey. You just have to be, because you need home playoff again, if not more than that. And you have the toughest schedule in the CCHA down the stretch.
And I think you've got a great opportunity here. I think, the guys talked about it after, during the press conference after the game in Columbus, Cole Moore in particular, spoke to it a little bit about, always hearing the fans, the contributions of those. That environment is going to continue to be huge down the rest of this home schedule. You've got students coming back, and, everybody knows now, hey, this is a team, they're on a 3-game win streak, and they just beat Ohio State for the first time in 7 years. Yeah. And, people know that. I mean, there's not, it's the hottest this team has been as far as the fans are concerned in, quite a while. So, I have no doubt that the barn is going to be absolutely packed for pretty much the foreseeable season here.
Already sold out for Notre Dame, and there's not really a big excuse for why students and fans shouldn't be in the arena for a home series until if you host in the quarterfinals, which I believe is during spring break, which, again, the scheduling screws them over, at least the students-wise, but the regular season there shouldn't be an excuse, really.
Well, I'll also say with that real quick, but they sold out Ohio State and school wasn't even in session. I think a week spring break, if they were to host and this team's really good, I don't think you got to worry about attendance. I really don't. This is a hockey town.
I was gonna say it's not just a hockey school; it's a hockey town.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about it. Can we talk a little bit more real quick? I know I'm kind of getting us off path, but about the Ohio State win, just on how big that is just for the school in general, because I know Derek Vandermeer, that is what they want, and it's not often you get we don't host Big Ten teams. We just don't for a lot of sports. It doesn't really happen often. It's good it happens for hockey, but it's cool to host them. But if you get shellacked 5-0, it's okay, cool. We had Ohio State and we lost. Who cares?
Yeah.
The fact that you won and not won in good fashion, and it was a good hockey game, and you played well, and after a good tie in Columbus the night before, that's huge, and especially at a sold out arena at Slater in front of home fans to kickstart season. That's huge. That's what Vandermeer wanted. That's what it's all about. If you have wins like that, you're gonna remember that. That's gonna be a win you're gonna remember when the season's over, regardless how the season finishes. Even if you win the CCHA or you lose in the first round, you're gonna say, hey, how cool was it to beat Ohio State? I just wrote a piece for Falcon Media about the biggest stories in athletics since we've been gone. That will go in the first edition of the BG News. My first one I had was beating Ohio State, because that is huge. That never happened. That was the first one they had over them since the 2018-19 season. Yeah. It's been a long time. That is a huge, huge deal. And unfortunately, it's not going to get one of the coverage. We covered it as well as we could, but what was in session, obviously we weren't in school. It was during winter break, but that's huge. That's going to be huge stuff. It's probably going to be talked about the Ziggies. It's going to be stuff that people will talk about the rest of the season. That's a big win for the community and for the team, and who knows what's going to lead them.
Yeah, I do think the best part about it is how quickly they moved off of it.
Right.
The team, at least. Us as off it. us as fans, we can sit on that and say, turning point in the season, whatever, a big win, first since 2018. I don't know. Knowing head coach Dennis Williams, they didn't celebrate that the next day. Yeah. He let him have that night, and then the next day it was back to work. They had to prepare for Ferris State that week, which I think is the better part of the whole thing, how quickly they all forgot about it, and they just moved on to the next, which is, in hockey is definitely needed to be able to move off quickly, because things happen so quick on the ice. Things happen so quick. The season's halfway done already, and it started in September, but it feels like it's going by pretty quick, because you only play every weekend. So that's definitely a powerful win, the best one that they've had. I think that was before the Ty Eigner era, if not in his first season. Yeah. So it's been a full head coach since you've beaten.
And Ohio I like State. That point you made too, is you move off it quick, because you could have easily dropped the Friday game against Ferris State because you're just riding off that high. You didn't. Yeah. You shellacked them. You win four games with them in the season. And obviously Saturday was because Quinn Emerson had a 4-point performance. So good job, Emerson. But,
Yeah, Quinner played great.
Yeah, that's also a sign of a good team, because how many teams have you seen have that big win and then the next series comes around and they lose?
And a well-coached team and a well-led team and a very disciplined team with some of the most freshmen of any team in the CCHA. It's just all around, they're playing their best hockey that they have in the last 5, 6, maybe even 10 years. So that definitely, but also, I know head coach Dennis Williams, he wants to schedule top-tier teams. And a U of M or a Michigan State or a Denver or a Colorado College is not going to schedule you unless they know you can give them a fight. Because I don't want to lambaste the sports, but this isn't basketball or football where you just schedule gimmies and then you go into conference play. Like, you want as difficult as you can possibly get. If you're these lower end teams, you want to have the weight on the end of your bat before you get into conference play. So. They want to schedule those top teams. They beat Ohio State. Now they can schedule a bigger tier. And they know that bigger tier, when they look at Willie hitting their line, is going to be like, they beat Ohio State last year. They played better than them 2 games in a row. We might as well take this, and roll this into a couple of series, a couple of years.
I mean, next year they're going to Connecticut for that tournament against UConn.
Against Penn State, Sacred Heart, and UConn.
Yep.
And Penn State and UConn are top programs. Sacred Heart's no slouch. Maybe better than Bowling Green is in the 20th century or the 21st century. So, it's a very good sign. It's a very good sign for the program. It's a very good sign for this team. But it's something you have to sustain, because you kind of avoided it last year slightly, but you have had a second half of the season collapse historically. And you're trying to avoid that now. So we're in a similar situation than we have the last couple. It's, if you can maintain this for the rest of the schedule, that is, I can't stress enough how insanely tough it is to go. Bemidji was the top team for a while, has fallen down to below Bowling Green, who's in the 5th spot. Then you have Notre Dame, which you can argue doesn't matter because it's not conference. But then St. Thomas, who's a top 3 team, Augustana, who's the number 1 team, Minnesota State, who's the number 2 team, Michigan Tech, who's the team right above you. And how many games is that? 8 games. You probably have to win straight up at least 5 of them, and probably take more points than a couple more. I mean, you're trying to host more than just one series. You're trying to host more than just the quarterfinal. You got to host the semifinal this year. You already went to a semifinal. Try and host it now. Try and win the whole thing.
Yep. I mean, the standard is always going to elevate, but I think after a both surprising and disappointing result against Northern Michigan, I think
that was bad.
But
that was really bad.
I do think the team has turned a corner that, like, hey, this was an outlier more than it was like the rule for us. So I'm really, really curious to see.
Well, and also getting into more puck and gameplay there. Against Northern Michigan, they were missing Gustav Sternberg, who's until that point, and maybe the last couple of years, been your best defenseman. And you were missing Jackson Niedermeyer, who's maybe your most dynamic defenseman. So you're missing 2 of your 6 blue liners in that game. You had to play guys that are healthy scratches normally. I mean, it's no excuse, and you still should not have lost. You're a more talented team without any defensemen on the ice than Northern Michigan is. But, that's an added layer that, it's no coincidence the second Goose and Niedermeyer got back, you beat a Big Ten team. And you pretty much stomped on Ferris State in their own arena. You should steamroll Lake State when they come to town. And you got to take that into good teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always hate to drop a game and miss out on points against a team that's not a contender, but I think it's almost a good thing. I don't, any other team you drop a game to in the CCHA, that's not going to light nearly the fire under you that, losing to Northern Michigan should. So, I mean.
No, yeah, that was horrible. That's the kind of series, that's the kind of game, like we were talking before, is that the Kent State game for men's basketball that they lost by 3 points.
Yep.
That's the one you look back on at the end of the season and you're like, that would have gotten us 3 extra places. That would have gotten us the home semifinal. If they miss it, you look back to that series because you should have taken 6. You only took 2 points.
Yeah.
And that's borderline unforgivable.
I like the CCHA has the home, but I also like neutral site, so they have Cleveland.
Yeah.
But seeding matters.
Home is better.
Yes, I mean,
in my opinion.
I hate neutral sites.
It's so bad.
I like football bowl games because I grew up with them. I don't like neutral sites.
But people will travel to football bowl games.
Well, yeah.
Not too many people will travel to middle of nowhere Minnesota for Bowling Green semifinal game. Unfortunately,
Can we give a shout out to historic Crew Stadium?
Yeah.
And the 42
All
people
7
that
people in
went to-
attendance.
Yeah. First
was
year
horrible.
of it. But yeah. Have a Friday afternoon semifinal game during the workday. Yeah, sure.
Do you think it was hard to operate camera for that? Like, dude, don't point it at the stands. No, keep it on the grass. Like, only grass in front.
Well, for the Super Bowl performance, when they have performers in the field and they try to zoom in on the stage to make it look like there's thousands of people and there's really only
you
50
see
people in
somebody's,
there.
phone camera up there.
They're
Just like
like,
friends and family.
Everybody's off getting the hot dog.
yeah. Here, zoom in, make it. Yeah.
I don't care
But,
that Justin Timberlake's here.
Cleveland is cool though for a neutral
That's
site
fair.
Yeah,
because it's an NBA arena. It gives them a chance to play.
Also,
in a
with
big, in the facility works that they can use an NBA press conference room to
And
do
most
all
of the
that
teams
stuff.
are a reasonable distance.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what Akron Kent in the final.
That's where
was-
the Max headquartered. Max headquartered in
Yeah.
Cleveland. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, you're gonna get fans of those teams, but you're also in a city like Cleveland, a city that likes basketball, has an NBA team. You're gonna just get some people to show up anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But having
makes a lot more
Akron
sense.
and Kent in the championship game a couple years ago, those are the 2 closest teams there. So it's it made the atmosphere incredible.
But if Bowling Green ends up having to go to Bemidji for a semifinal game on a Friday night, somebody
They'll
from
travel.
Bowling Green will have to fly to Minneapolis.
They'll do it.
Drive 3 hours
They're
to
crazy.
Bemidji.
Cock and crazy.
Watch the game. Drive
soccer.
back. Are we serious?
Bleacher creatures, man.
That's
They're creatures.
brutal. That is brutal.
They'll do it.
Sounds like a trip Ben Korak's just waiting to make.
Oh yeah.
Ben has to go on his 10th flight.
Yeah, we're
2
acting like I'm
weeks.
not also a sicko enough to do that. But how many people are?
Get ready to learn
Not
airport,
as
pal.
I know. Not as many as if we
Get ready
were going
to
to
airplane mode on your phone, dude.
Yeah. It's already consistently.
Well, I don't know where to go from here. Just lead us.
Yeah, that was a nice aside. Yeah, well, I think you're probably gonna take care of Lake State pretty easily.
That's what we said about Northern Michigan.
This is true. I don't think they had been humbled like that though, right?
No.
You know what I mean? To turn around,
They won't do it again.
I don't think
they
they'll
won't-
do it
they
again.
won't do it
Well, I mean, in fairness, Ben, they can't do it again. You don't.
Well, they still took 2 points. You'd be surprised.
Well,
But-
no, but I'm saying you don't play another Northern Michigan. There's not
No,
another
that's
team.
true. After Lake State, it's
Ferris State's the only team close to Northern Michigan. I mean, even Lake State has 2 more wins and they have way more points.
yeah.
So
Lake State's the better of the 3. The better of the bottoms. But
Yeah.
look at the point difference between Bemidji and Lake State. 11 points.
yeah, you're definitely
Bemidji wouldn't have they would have to not play the rest of the season.
I want you to spell Bemidji.
Bemidji.
I think he might.
You had to think about that.
But I think he
Yeah.
actually might have got that.
No, that's correct.
Did he get it?
Yeah, BMIDJI.
I'm not a casual, man.
I know you're not.
I'd be
I
more
never- I
concerned
never
if he
said you
didn't
were.
know
he
how
can
to spell
He can't do
Bemidji.
math. Remember,
I can't.
not
do
a math guy, but he is a spelling
Known
guy.
as a
I'm not
non-math
either.
guy.
He is multiple broadcast clips.
said he's
known
not a
not
guy.
a math guy.
Probably once every weekend I'll say I'm not
Yeah.
a math guy.
I feel like I've heard at least 2 different people who aren't you mention Ben Korak not being a math guy in some context.
I'm not a math
on
guy.
the call.
Not a math guy.
But Bemidji State, Ben, they're right below Bowling Green in the standings, same number of games played, 2 points off. I mean, the CCHA, they've got those bottom 3 teams that are worse, but the top 6 are good. What do you think? What do you think Bowling Green's going to do going into that? What do you think they should do? I mean, give me some thoughts on that one.
There's not a team that they play the rest of the way I don't feel like they can beat. I'm assuming that they're going to have a series where they play down, take 2 points, 1 point, and then there's going to be a series where they play out of their mind and take 6 that they maybe talent-wise don't deserve to take. So I'm assuming in their I'm moving past Lake State because I feel like you should take 6. If you take any less, it's mildly disappointing. Man, you're going to make me do math here. 8,
I'll give you some time. I'll talk for a
Not a
little
math
bit as
guy.
you do
9,
math.
10 conference games left outside of Lake State. That's 6. No.
For those of you listening at
30
home, he's
points
using
total.
his hands currently to
That's
try
30
to count
points.
it.
Yeah, the gears are grinding. 30 points total. You probably need to take 20 for for a chance at a 1 seed. You should probably take 15 or more, which is completely doable. because
I mean, if you split those other
in
5
10
series,
games, yeah,
and you could.
That's pretty much. You should split every series and you should sweep one of them, and that would put you in a very prime spot. Because also the benefit of playing so many tough teams is if you beat them and take 3 points, that's a 6-point swing.
Right,
because now
it's
there's 3 points they're
on
not
them,
taking.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to
if
be
you
the
sweep-
best, you got to beat the best.
Yeah, true.
You know?
That's what we were talking about with all the sports now. But if Michigan Tech's right ahead of you, if you sweep Michigan Tech, that's a 12-point swing. So you pretty much bury any team you're able to sweep, depending on what they do
Barring
against
them
everybody
having
else.
a phenomenal
Also,
outplay
yes.
against everybody
But
else.
it's like all of those top 5 teams cannot get swept anymore. They have to take points almost every game, if
It
not
feels
a
like
solid amount every series.
because you play Lake State this weekend, and then you only have the other contender teams remaining.
yeah.
I think they control their destiny more than. I mean, they all can. It's still too far. There's too much conference play left for teams to not control. Their outcome somewhat. But like you have complete control.
Yeah.
I mean, everything you do determines.
They play an extra game over Minnesota State and Augustana the rest of the way. Those 2 teams have played 15. You've played 14. So if you win that extra game you have to play, you're tied with them. You're actually leading. You're
Right,
higher
yeah,
than Minnesota State. You're tied with Augustana for the 1 spot if you played that extra game earlier. So you have the game in hand.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. It's still too early in the season to be like what you have to do and who you have to do. Against what. You just got to go out and win. Take 3 points at least every series, and a couple of them you have to take 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah.
And that's completely doable. This team can definitely do it. They're playing the best hockey in quite a while for the program. There's not a team I don't think they can't beat. I feel more confident about them than I have in a while at any point in any of the seasons that I've been here in my 3 years.
Oh, and I think the really tough sledding, going on the road to Augustana, that second weekend in February, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, Augustana has good fans too.
I feel like that's as hard as it's going to be. Not because like Minnesota State, St. Thomas, both really good. Also, you get both of them at home.
Yeah,
and I mean,
I think it was a quote I heard from the great Sparky Anderson. He said, if you and referencing baseball, if you take 3 out of 4 at home
Sparky.
and you split on the road, then you're gonna end up as hot. You're gonna end up as the 1 seed in the MLB. That's just how it works. So if you take that logic into account, you have Lake State at home who you should sweep. But besides that, if you take 4, 5, 6 points against St. Thomas at home, then you just split Augustana. Then take 4, 5, 6 points at home against Minnesota State, then split Michigan Tech. You're still in the black.
Yeah, and I mean,
as long as you stay above that 500 line the rest of the way, you should be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, looking how they played against Minnesota State in Mankato earlier this year, looking how they played against St. Thomas earlier this year, you split against St. Thomas, you get an shootout win and shootout loss against Minnesota State. I mean, these are teams you can compete with, and I think that, Bowling Green's as hot as they've been. I really think, I mean, if they can take 3 points on the weekend against Augustana, I think you're in a great spot. Obviously, we're going to know more by the time we get to that. They still got Lake State this weekend, Bemidji State next.
You split St. Thomas and Minnesota State, who are, in my opinion, the top 2 teams in the CCHA, and you are not playing near to the level of hockey you're playing now. And you did not have Ty Higgins, who you can't stress enough how much of a game changer he is, because that's kicking a full defenseman down for maybe the best defenseman on the ice offensively.
And it kind of feels right now, too, that you can throw in any of your goaltenders and have a fresh guy who's playing at about the same level.
Whereas before you were forced Steinman and Palmer. Now you have 3 guys. If one guy doesn't play well, you still have 2 other options.
Yeah, I mean,
they're in a great spot.
I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse. I feel like this team is primed right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think things are really, really well lined up for them. I mean, the only other factor, you have to take care of business, and these are, really good teams ahead.
Very good
But
teams.
you've shown that you can compete with any of that. Honestly, the only team that you haven't, maybe I am getting ahead of myself, the only team that you haven't really shown much against is they only took 1 point against Bemidji. Yeah.
Bemidji was playing out of their minds, and now they're
back to earth a little bit.
Playing like a word that I can't say. They're playing quite poorly. I don't know what their numbers have been, like their win-loss total. the last couple. You can tell me that. I'm looking up next week's schedule because I will make the claim. Do not be surprised if BG is the number 1 or the number 2 seed when we're talking on the Zig Zone next week. Because Minnesota State plays Michigan Tech, both teams ahead of you. St. Thomas plays Bemidji State. Bemidji's 1 place behind you. St. Thomas is ahead of you. Augustana plays Ferris State. Ferris State always plays Augustana tough, although it's in Augustana. So there's a real chance that you're a top 3 seed.
I won't
next
be
week.
surprised at all if Bowling
And you
Green's in too.
and you play the poorest team maybe on that list.
Yeah, Bemidji on definitely a cold stretch, 2 straight losses against Michigan Tech. Prior to that, loss against Augustana, and then a tie with a shootout win.
Yeah, they lost the Augustana series. They lost the Michigan Tech series. Northern Michigan is Northern Michigan, so whatever.
Yeah.
But, and St. Thomas is real good.
Yeah.
So they don't have an easy road either.
Well, and then, I mean, if you look at it like that, you move ahead on the schedule after Lake State, after Bemidji. You play Notre Dame. You could go into St. Thomas, a home series against St. Thomas, one of the better teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on a 6-game conference win streak.
7 counting the overtime win over.
Well,
sorry,
I mean,
7
that's
counting
pending the Notre Dame result. I'm accounting for that,
Yeah.
not necessarily being.
Well, also the Northern Michigan overtime win. So
Right,
I mean,
right.
technically, that was last year, but
Yeah, but that's
you're
a
counting a
conference,
5-game
right?
win streak
so
right
in
now.
conference play, you'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of Lake Superior State,
Yep.
and then another 2 if you can take care of Bemidji. If and I mean the way they've been playing, I think it absolutely stands to reason you could. Something that always I think misleads about the CCHA is like Bowling Green being in the 5th. They've played that 1 game less. You play 1 more game, you have 1 more win. You're in first. Like
You
the
got that game
gap
in
is
hand.
not what it may appear from the
The
standings.
gap is nothing.
So
That's absolutely nothing.
yeah, I mean
One bad bounce of the puck and you change 3 places.
I don't know, all of the remaining schedules, but based on, how good the teams in the CCHA are, I don't know that there's a team that has the ability to like build more momentum than this Bowling Green team does.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
I don't disagree.
especially, I know that non-conference play, I'll even be the first to say I don't care about it as much, but that Ohio State one was huge. If you get a result against Notre Dame, I don't think that's anything to be upset about.
No.
I mean,
Yeah. I Notre Dame's a lesser team than Ohio State, so you should at least take 1 win that weekend. But again, that it doesn't really matter like Ohio State does, where you're really playing for pride. You're playing against
that in-state rivalry and the history of it.
Yeah,
CCHA
the history of the in-state rival. Your fans love to see that game. Notre Dame is very cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's still non-conference. It's no different than the Niagara series earlier on. And honestly, if you were playing the same hockey coming out of it, it doesn't matter whether you beat Ohio State. You have to play well in conference play. That's all that matters. We're at a mid-major, and mid-major hockey. We're not ranked right now, and
Right
maybe
now.
we won't finish this season ranked, most likely, unless we win out the rest of the way. So, it's all about conference play the whole time. It has to be.
So kind of projecting a little bit, because obviously we just need to know more before we know how it's going to play out when it comes Mason Cup tournament time. Who do you see as the biggest threat to win it all in the CCHA based on like right now? I mean, like I said, the margin seems so thin. I mean, Augustana to Bowling Green, they all feel like any of those teams could be, could be right there.
The top 3 for me, if I can include Bowling Green, is Michigan Tech, Minnesota State, and Augustana. Mainly because Minnesota State's got the reigning player of the year, goaltender of the year, Alex Tracy. Yeah. Augustana's got Josh Kotai, who's arguably played better than Tracy has this year. And Michigan Tech's got a really good goalie that they brought in, and they have a really good group. Maybe the best skaters out of those 3 teams with the lesser goalie. I would also put St. Thomas up there. I don't trust their goaltending as much, but they're also a young team and a very skillful team. And honestly, the window for me is all 6 teams at the top. I couldn't give you a top 2. I don't think.
So where are you placing Bowling Green approximately in that? If you couldn't give a top 2, do you think they fill like a top 3, or do you think they're?
You see, I see them anywhere in the top 6.
It's just that tight, you think?
It is that tight.
going to be some exciting hockey down the stretch.
I wish I could give a better answer, but I see them in the top 6. If I had to like bet money on it right now, I'd probably say 3 or 4, because I do think they're better than Bemidji, and I think they're better than Augustana. But like they also played better than, like, Minnesota State played well. They didn't play well and took ties against Minnesota State.
Yeah.
So like you could argue they're better than the Mavericks are this year. They have played St. Thomas once. You could argue St. Thomas is better. They beat them 6-2 night 2, but the Falcons won in the first night. Michigan Tech, they haven't played. They only played once, and that's a dangerous series because it's the last one that you have all year. So that's going to be a difficult one. A team you have no scouting report for, really. You haven't played them yet. You haven't seen their new goalie. You haven't seen any of their skaters. That's the series of the rest of the year, in my opinion, is that Michigan Tech one to end the season, because so many of the standings are going to depend on that. The Falcons and Michigan Tech. That might be a battle for home quarterfinal round, and a pretty good chance that, like last year and 2 years ago, those are going to be the two teams that play each other in the quarterfinal. So that's series of the rest of the season. That needs to be circled on the calendar.
And I'm sure it's going to be too with the games these couple of teams have played against each other the last few years. I'm sure that's one that's being given the attention. I think it's kind of interesting too, looking over the schedules of the other teams at the top. Minnesota State, I think Bowling Green has as good of a chance of defraying their schedule or like their placement as anyone. Bowling Green, I think, is arguably the best team. They have one against Augustana, but they don't have a full weekend against Augustana left. They'll play Michigan Tech this next weekend.
Yeah, that'll be a big series too.
But after that one, I mean, they've got Ferris State, Bemidji, Bowling Green, Northern Michigan.
They're taking wins the rest of the way.
I think
their most difficult competition the rest of the way is Bowling Green.
I think that, and I will make the concession, you obviously know much more about this team and about the sport than I do. I'm really, really looking at that one because that's a team that you competed with. You had pretty much a symmetrical result against them earlier in the year. Shootout loss, shootout win. So you're fairly on par with them, at least from that one. You've got them in your home barn, and you're the best remaining team able to unseat them from the top. Because if Bowling Green, if you split points or worse with Minnesota State, I think they're probably going to finish 1 or 2. I don't know. I'm going to check Augustana's schedule. I don't, looking at those teams at the top, I have a hard time seeing Minnesota State not finishing pretty much, near the top with who they have to play.
They will finish in the top 3.
Well, I don't have a doubt about 3, but
probably in the top 2 and probably number 1. Just they've got a lot of their difficult competition out of the way early, and they lucked out with their schedule because I think they play Northern Michigan twice, which we only do. We play They play Northern Michigan in 2 series. We only play them in 1.
Yeah.
We lucked out that we played Ferris State and Lake Superior State in 2 series, but that's still not even close to the same as Northern Michigan.
Yeah,
Northern Michigan has won the season series over you.
Augustana down the stretch, they get Ferris State next weekend. They'll have 1 against Minnesota State, and then they still have to play Michigan Tech, Bowling Green, and St. Thomas. That's tough down the end of the year too. Mm-hmm. St. Thomas, as I just said, have to play Augustana themselves. They also have to play. I lost it. They have to play Bemidji. They have the 1 against Minnesota State. They have Michigan Tech and Bowling Green. So, St. Thomas has... I think Minnesota State has, of the contenders, top contenders, they have the easiest schedule down the stretch.
They do. Well, and 6 out of the 9 teams are legitimate 1-seed contenders. Right. So everybody's going to have a tough schedule.
Right.
That's Minnesota State will
Minnesota
have the
State
easiest.
Gets to play all 3 of the non-contenders down the stretch, which is not a privilege that any of the other contenders have.
But again, they are only 1 point ahead of Bowling Green and have played a full game more.
Right. This is true.
So with the game in hand, who knows how that's going to play out?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely going to be an exciting end to the season. A lot of action in Bowling Green. I always enjoy it. I feel like a lot of times with a lot of teams that I follow, there's a disappointing part of any season where it's like, well, now I just have to care about what other teams are doing because my team is no longer in control. Bowling Green hockey fans have the luxury right now. Everything is in front of them.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a really, really exciting end of the season, but it's going to start this weekend at the Slater Family Ice Arena, January 16th and 17th. Lake Superior State Lakers will come to town, 7:07 p.m. tip-off on both of those. And, Ben, I imagine you're going to be on the call of that one.
Yeah. I don't. Have we scheduled that out? Have you done?
Oh,
your
hey
job?
guys, you guys been talking about the same stuff for about 20 minutes. Oh my gosh.
Bro doesn't want to
No.
talk about hockey. Just say so.
No. Yeah, you're on the call for both. I still got to schedule it out though.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if you had done your job.
No, never.
Okay.
As
Job?
always,
Just
WBGU
clarifying.
88.1 FM, your
Yes,
home
sir.
for Falcon Hockey. Mr. Ben Korek on the call of that
And
one.
friends.
And BG and Falcon Media.
Also streaming on
.com
bgfuckingmedia.com if you can't find the radio dial.
And friends.
If you can't find the radio dial. Well, that wraps up hockey. I want to pose one more question because we kind of had it on deck to talk about. We're kind of near the end. So I'm just going to pose it as a question instead of doing like a segment on it since we're near the end of the show here. How much do you think Bowling Green football is in trouble with the portal
Big
right
trouble.
now?
Big
More
trouble.
so than last year.
Yes. Yeah. They're in trouble.
It's something we talked about a lot during the season.
When sorry to cut you off, but when your top transfer as of right now outside of a Purdue linebacker who played for Eddie at Tennessee State is a Charleston Southern defensive back, an offensive lineman from Appalachian State who played one game last year and redshirted the year before, a long snapper from Benedictine after you already gave a scholarship to your backup long snapper, and an Assumption quarterback, and you have lost 16 players and still have another 19 in the portal, and your only two returners is a blocking tight end and a very good safety. Yeah, that's not good.
You know, it's interesting to me because I felt like talent-wise, this year's team was worse than last year's team. But it feels like there's some like pretty big time, like some solid programs that these guys are going to. I mean, Nate Papp's going to Florida State. Say what you will about Florida State, but I mean, a team that's been on the top of the mountain.
Jacob Harris, Wisconsin,
Gideon
MJ
Lampron.
Cannon, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Colorado, SMU, West Virginia,
The Pudge effect.
Northwestern, Temple. There's a lot of them.
Thank Pudge.
Right.
Well, no,
Think
no,
the Pudge
they
effect.
were developed.
They
well.
were all those are all really good players and they had a big role this
That
past
cat
season.
was advising them to enter the portal.
Yeah.
Is that what happened, Lucas?
Yeah, yes.
I will say
That's
though,
exactly what I'm
a
saying.
lot of those players were Loeffler era players
Right.
who spent 1 year under Eddie, developed fully, and then left. I mean, really, the only big outlier, two big outliers, is Keon Washington and Gideon Lampron.
And I think with a guy like Gideon Lampron too, I mean, you kind of not accepted, but assumed that might be the direction it goes. I mean, it's a guy that played well enough to, be a starter at a power.
Especially
4
when
program.
you look at he came from Dayton, he was FCS. If you have that season,
it was always kind of a stepping stone, I think.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
is just the nature.
Reminds me of Marcus Hill in basketball.
No.
Plays in the FCS a few years, has a good season at BG, and goes off to a couple Power 5 programs. Or Power 4 now, however you want to look at it.
The reality of mid-major transfer portal.
What are they going to do, Tyler? What do you think? I mean,
I don't want to press. I mean, I'm pressing the alarm, but I don't want to say like it's, going to be god awful next year because nearly all of the transfers that Eddie added were during the second portal opening last year. There is no second portal opening, but they were late transfer additions because of when he was brought in. So I think there still is hope that he can add talent as the portal continues to be open. I mean, you look at it, I think I heard a number recently, there was 35% of all college football players in the portal. If you do the math, about 130 teams, about 105 players a team, that's over 13,000 players. Do 35% of that, that's 4,700 players in the portal. There's still probably 3,500 players out there for Eddie George to go pick to come to BG and convince to come to BG. So there's still a lot of talent out there in the portal. So I'm not concerned in terms of him bringing in talent just yet, but I am concerned at the amount of talent that's left and the amount of talent that he has not been able to retain of guys that he's even brought in. If you look at players still in the portal too, like that's concerning.
Well, and it's the kind of thing too. I feel like you can't really say, some of those, might just happen regardless of the outcome of the season. If this team wins 10 games, competes for a MAC title, and doesn't win it or whatever, I mean, Gideon Lambarn having the great season he did is still probably going to make the jump to a bigger program, and I mean, you can't fault him for that.
No,
that's kind of just the accepted thing. I'm curious to see if there are more transfers in a similar vein to him. A top, D2 FCS kind of guy moving to a program like Bowling Green.
That seems to be the main base that Eddie's going at in terms of getting these guys.
Well, when you're one of the lower tiers of the FBS programs, I think that's kind of
I think he has connections there with Tennessee State.
Yeah,
in being able to pull schools in those conferences.
And we have yet to see, maybe it'll kind of, not work out this way. I think you also just can't underestimate, the recognition and connections of, Coach George, just based on who he is and his history in college football. I mean,
the biggest addition they have so far is a linebacker from Purdue. The only reason they got him is because he played for Eddie.
Right. So, I don't know. It'll be an interesting one, but I think right now, the people who are sounding alarms are a little preemptive, but I understand where they're coming from because we haven't seen any of those signature additions yet.
Yeah,
and that's what's troubling.
If you are looking to keep track of this, on bgfalconmedia.com, there's a BGSU football transfer portal tracker. Just go to the website, click on sports, go to football, scroll down a few stories, you'll see it there. That is being updated constantly. Been updated 2 times while the show's been on air. So stay tuned to that. That'll have all of the news regarding transfer portal for BGSU football.
Yeah. And with that is going to do it for today's first episode of the Zig Zone of the semester, but certainly not the last, because we'll be back again every Sunday this semester, keeping you up to date with the latest in Falcon athletics. As always, go to bgfalconmedia.com to keep up with all of our content going out, and also tune into Falcon Radio and WBGU 88.1 FM for our live broadcasts. And you can check out YouTube for rebroadcasts, highlight packages, press conferences, and much, much more content from the Falcon Media Sports Network. That's going to do it for us today. For Ben Korak, Tyler Kavelitz, and Lucas Kleinmeyer, have a good night.